Okay, well, I'd like to welcome you all to this final session this afternoon on an incredibly important topic, and it's something very close to the heart of GWOPR, but of course UN Habitat as GWOPR's main partner and main supporter. And that's about this roundtable on scaling water and sanitation services. We live in a very changing world at the moment. Due to the conflict changes, the climate changes, it's put extreme pressure on access to services, to housing, and access to basic services. And we're now in a situation where budgets are being cut across the world in all economies of all scales. And we are looking at ways to see how we can continue to provide these very basic life-giving services. For those of you who've been working with GWOPR and UN Habitat for a long time, you will know that the WOP model, and now more the SWAP model, has gained momentum. And we are seeing a huge interest in this area of work. But there's still some way to go. And one particular area is how the work on GWOPR has pioneered looking at peer-to-peer learning, how we can go a step further to look and see how these partnerships can go beyond swapping of best practices to supporting structural changes in the governance and financing, in particular, of access to water and sanitation. And really, that's the crux of what this session is this afternoon. It's to hear from a panel of experts about, principally from the IFIs and others, to hear about what we can do as the GWOPR community to see how we can use the outputs of WOPs to encourage and influence and guide and help the financing mechanisms which many of the multilateral development banks and bilateral donors look at. So we've got a very exciting panel. We have about an hour and a half or so, and it will be co-moderated with my dear colleague Shabana. I'm looking forward to the discussions. We'll be sharing the moderation, and then I shall come back to you at the end with a few closing remarks. So welcome again, everybody. Shabana, over to you.
Good evening, all, and thank you, Graham. No utility operates in isolation, and no investor wants to take the risk alone. So today we're going to explore with these great speakers. I'm going to introduce how partnerships, sometimes peer learning, can bridge the gap between technical excellence and investment readiness. So we have great speakers here for you, and I'll slowly introduce them one by one, and I kindly ask you to take the seats here. First is Winston Yu. Winston Yu is the water practice manager for Europe and Central Asia region at the World Bank, and he has extensive experience working on technical and institutional problems in the water sector and has carried out several investment projects in a variety of countries like India, Bangladesh, China, Ethiopia, Ukraine, Armenia, to name a few. And prior to the World Bank, he was working as a senior researcher at the Stockholm Environment Institute. So Winston, please join the floor. And second, we have Bernd Schunewald, who is the senior project manager at KfW, that's a German development bank, and he manages a wide range of water and sanitation projects. And before, he has experience working extensively in East Africa, DR Congo, African Union departments in Central Africa, and regional funds. And prior to that, he's worked in the finance sector with KfW in several countries like Tunisia, Yemen, and also Indonesia. So, Bernd, please join us. And third, we have Esra Girsunlu, who is the principal water sector specialist at EBRD. And Esra serves in a lot of roles within EBRD. And prior to this role, she's been working with Stantec, holding positions as a water engineer and environmental engineer with strong technical background. Esra, over to you. And then we have Vivek Raman, who is the principal urban development specialist at ADB, and he has a wide range of experience as a water and sanitation specialist working in financing partnership facilities within ADB. And prior to ADB, Vivek worked at the World Bank in Water and Sanitation Office of the Vice President in Knowledge Management Evaluation. Over to you, Vivek. So next we have a slightly different but a very important person from the EU, Zoe van der Bosch. So Zoe is currently a program manager at the EU Commission under the Department of International Partnerships, DG INPA. And prior to EU, she has experience as within a water engineering firm called Share. And then she's also a professional with technical expertise in water and sanitation for agriculture, and also the social background in water supply and sanitation. Please, Zoe. And last, we have Pierre Scribe. I hope I pronounced your name right. Pierre is the Water and Sanitation Project Team Lead at the French Development Agency, AFD. And Pierre has been working extensively with financing when it comes to French utilities, also hosting a lot of peer learning partnerships beforehand. And his job is to define, monitor, and optimize the performance of public water and sanitation services, along with a lot of collaborations between French utilities and overall globally in other parts of the global south. Yeah, over to you, Pierre. So we will actually start with a round of framing presentations from a few of you here. And first I invite Ben Schoneval from KfW to talk about climate and utilities and their study recently that KfW made on Paris alignment of water utilities. So you're free to talk from there, or you could come to the podium. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I have to say I don't have much experience on water operator partnerships, so don't ask me too many questions about it, but I'll do my best to answer. All right, so what I'm going to do is, KfW, as you might know, is basically a financing institution. So what do? We finance investments. So here in this case, investments in water infrastructure. And we work extensively with our partners, which are quite often utilities, water sanitation utilities. So apart from the investment finance, we're also able to finance, to a certain extent, capacity building. So that's basically what I'm talking about here. So it's basically the question. So the investments we're doing have a lot to do with climate change, of course. So the projects have to deal with adaptation. So there's now more water, or there's less water, or more variation in the water availability, or there is a problem with the water quality. So that's all related to climate change. And that's what the projects have to deal with. But then also we thought by ourselves, it's not only the projects, it's also the utilities who have to deal with this. And is there something we can do to support them in this? So that's why we conducted a study about what we call Paris alignment of water utilities. So basically, it's about making water companies more resilient to climate risks. So it's climate adaptation, climate mitigation, and of course, greenhouse. No, it's about regulatory issues. And basically, the objective of the whole study is about making water companies more resilient to climate risks. And that has a lot to do with the management of climate-related risks and also opportunities. And yeah, also to help them prepare for regulatory requirements. So basically the idea behind this, of course, if you don't adapt to climate change, then you risk your business in the long term. And that's, of course, something to care about. So basically what we wanted to do is to look at the organizational structure of water utilities in our partner countries, our so-called water utility partners related to climate change risks. And the idea is to develop a methodology to analyze the organizational structure of the utility, and then from there to come up with recommendations for improving the organizational structure with regard to climate change risks. And that all, of course, has to be adapted to key issues of the international water industry, because this kind of, let's say, exercise exists already, especially for the financial sector, but not so much, as far as we know, for the water sector. So then we asked a consultant, which is research institute for water and climate at the University of Aachen to conduct this study. And basically what they did is they based this methodology on the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, because that's something which already existed. What they did was a desk research on the current regulatory requirements and standards in Germany, in Europe, and internationally, and then to conduct interviews with water utilities, starting in Germany, but also looking, of course, at partner countries. In this case, it was South Africa, Peru, Kenya, and Jordan. And then afterwards, that was sounded with experts from KfW. So with the experience we made with our partners in our projects. And the question initially was, okay, are the partners really are already concerned about this issue? I mean, of course, they're concerned about climate change in a way, but do they work already on, let's say, on organizational aspects related to climate change or not? And we were not sure, but basically the outcome of this study was also they already started more or less. Some in Germany were already quite far, but also there are also others who just started, and then but also in the partner countries we could see that they all started, partly because they were forced by regulatory requirements, but I think also partly because of their own interest in reducing risks related to climate change. So basically, the study used, as I said, the TCFD recommendations, and according to TCFD, you look at 4 different levels. This is governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. I'm not going into details here because I don't think I have too much time. So, yeah, but that was, I think, quite useful as a guidance. And basically, for each utility, they came up with recommendations. And what I show here is some recommendations which can be generalized, but that doesn't mean now we have like answers for all utilities, but basically the idea is at the end of the day that yes, in our case, we support utilities with capacity building to have such an exercise done, and then come up with a specific recommendation. So basically, that's something we can do as KfW, but of course, this can also be done in the, let's say, in the framework of water operator partnerships or by anyone else, or the utilities can do it by themselves. So basically, it's quite flexible, and we are more than happy to provide the information which we gained in the course of the study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we have Winston. Winston talking about building a water-secure future and how World Bank does it.
Okay. Hi. Apologies in advance. I will have to leave after the remarks to catch a train. But I wanted to share with you this horribly grotesque slide. I know it is terribly complex, as in typical World Bank fashion, but I do think it's absolutely necessary given the terribly complex situation we have when it comes to water. For all of you distinguished guests in this room right now, I don't need to remind you that water is the foundation of prosperity. I don't need to remind you that water is critical for jobs, growth, and stability. And I don't need to remind any of you that water underpins health, food security, thriving cities, and resilient economies. Now, as Graham mentioned, in the context of climate change, rapid population growth, sorry, did I get the name wrong? Sorry. And unfortunately, decades and decades of underinvestment, it's quite clear that we're pushing all of our water systems to the brink. And here I'm not just talking about infrastructure, I'm also talking about our institutional infrastructure and our human capital that exists in every single utility that you look out there. The message is very clear for me and my colleagues at the bank. Without water, development stalls, but with it, we can unlock enormous opportunities. Now, we're one of the largest external financiers for water in the developing world. Our portfolio is a little bit over 30 billion, and we've placed water security and climate resilience at the heart of our institutional approach, okay? And so this slide is meant to capture it all. Now, let me just very briefly walk you through it. We essentially have three big pillars: water for people, water for food, and water for planet. And I know this audience is most interested in water for people. But I think, ignoring the fact that that same water that you turn on your tap, that same water that runs through your wastewater treatment plant also serves other functions, such as growing food for a future larger population, water that is needed for environment, and so forth. So these are our three core pillars. You can also go onto our website, and World Bank website, you'll see that we have a corporate scorecard, and you'll see the metrics that we are using to track our performance and what we're doing against these three pillars. We've also identified through a lot of the research that has been done at the bank, kind of three big areas where we think much more attention needs to be done. One, resource inefficiency and undervaluation. So I think many of you are probably familiar with the Commission on the Economics of Water and some of the findings from that. Limited private sector participation. Whenever we talk about water supply and sanitation, we talk about billions and billions, if not trillions, and so how do you get there? And then three, complex implementation. Okay, 1 minute left, got it. And then also sharing some of our ideas on the way forward. Now, this strategy harnesses the bank's expertise. We've got about 300 plus professionals working globally. It mobilizes our funding and financing. And the main thing I want to leave with all of you in my 1 minute left is partnerships. Okay, we clearly cannot do this all ourselves. Okay, I mean, I look at the partners that are here, even amongst the 6, 7 of us here, it's not enough. We need governments, we need political action from governments, we need civil society, and we need groups like GWOP as well as others to all work in concert, putting out the ideas of thinking about how do we value water properly, how do we unlock private investment, and building the institutions to deliver. I'll leave you with just one final thought. This comes from a colleague of mine, perhaps a mentor, if you will. He used to always say to me, Winston, we don't want to just fix pipes. We want to fix the institutions that fix the pipes. Okay, and as a financing organization, our mandate is not just finance, but it is also about connecting knowledge with action, because there is a lot of good experiences out there. There's a lot of knowledge out there. And so how do you build peer networks? How do you strengthen associations? How do you set up programs for youth? I mean, I am deathly afraid who's going to be taking over these utilities in the next 20, 30 years. Who is working on that agenda? Okay, so the point I want to leave you all with is that it takes all of us, and it's not just about the financing, but it also requires taking all this knowledge that's out there and actually putting it into the field. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Winston, for that crisp, clear message that we have to fix the people and not the pipes. Next, we have Zoe from EU talking about financial linking with the big flagship program that WOPA is running. That's the EU WOP program. Over to you, Zoe.
Thank you, Shobana, and thank you all for attending this good session. For us, it's indeed a critical discussion to have about how to link this peer learning alongside financing. So for those of you who don't know the EU program, just to give you a quick recap, the EU is financing a peer-to-peer partnership program implemented by WOPA. The current phase is finishing, and we have been supporting 22 partnerships. And now with the second phase, which has currently a call for proposal ongoing, we aim at supporting 30 partnerships until 2030, sorry. So moving to the next slide, I would like so the aim of this presentation is a bit to explain why with this EU WOP program, we have been putting as a lever the financial linking alongside digitalization and the human rights to water and sanitation. And I'm actually happy to quote some of the figures of a World Bank report from 2023, Funding a Water Secure Future. But let me go back to the start. So water and sanitation utilities are at the heart of scaling up water and sanitation services. And part of that, the EU has made a commitment at the Water Action Agenda to support the improved access to safe drinking water and sanitation for 70 million people by 2030. And to achieve this ambition and more broadly to reach the SDG 6 globally, it's not just a matter of mobilizing funding. Because as highlighted by this World Bank report, a typical water and sanitation utility loses about $21 million each year through inefficiencies, such as linkages, unbilled water, or waste of energy. And at the same time, the water sector has one of the lowest budget execution rates across infrastructure sectors, with nearly 1/4 of the funding allocated, which remains unspent every year. So these figures, what do they show us? They show us that part of the financing gap of the water sector is actually a performance gap. And this is the reason why the European Union is supporting the capacity building of water operators through the Water Operators Partnership Program. And that's the reason we have this financial linking priority under our second phase of the program. So how do we do this? With the EU WOP, we aim at connecting the capacity development with the financing by improving the financial health of operator and supporting them mobilizing their internal resources. So this means by strengthening governance, improving billing, assets management, energy efficiency. All these inefficiency reductions aim at improving the financial health of the operator, ultimately their rating and creditworthiness. Secondly, through this linking, we aim at aligning the WOPs with upcoming or ongoing large-scale investments. We do that because of the reasons I will explain in the next slides, but by providing this soft component, we really believe that it can have a lasting impact on the hard infrastructure component that will be financed jointly to the EU program. So why do we do this? We do this for several reasons, and one of them is what I mentioned before. It's thanks to this catalytic effect of bringing together technical assistance and financing. That's one of the idea of the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative, which you heard about earlier today. And we believe that through this catalytic effect, we can indeed enhance the creditworthiness of water and sanitation utilities, contributing then to attract more financing, including private capital, and contributing to closing part of the financing gap of the sector. Another reason, which is as important, is that linking WOP with infrastructure investments allows to contribute to the sustainability, both the sustainability of the hard infrastructure, but also the sustainability of the WOP model, by dedicating some of the soft component investment of an infrastructure investment and actually deliver this investment through a WOP model, there is a real opportunity to scale up the WOP approach globally. And this approach, as I believe, is currently implemented by the Asian Development Bank, and I'm really eager to hear more about your experience. And lastly, but as importantly, linking WOPs with some EU-funded investments is also a way to open access to EU expertise and technologies. And this is a win-win situation, because then local utilities will benefit from good quality procurement technology solution, but it will also contributing to supporting the EU competitiveness. And this is fully aligned with the EU Water Resilience Strategy and the Global Gateway. So to conclude, through the EU WOP program, we really aim at aligning peer learning and investments and to make them go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. So as the last presenter, we have Vivek, who's going to be talking about their own, ADB's own WOP program called WOP for R, and I'll let Vivek explain the rest.
Thank you, Shobana, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's 1 a.m. Manila time, so pardon me if I kindly just suddenly nod off. And I've also been given the task to keep you all awake at 5 p.m., so I'm going to try and be short and stick to the 3 minutes that Shobana just point at me and we'll stop. I have a lot to share, but ADB is currently, it's a $100 billion bank. The water portfolio is roughly 17 billion or so. It's every year between 2.5 to $3 billion worth of projects. We recognize that it's not infrastructure. Oh, I have slides apparently. All right. It's not infrastructure alone. It's a trifecta of knowledge, institutional strengthening, and then you've got your loans that kind of come together to actually move the needle forward on what you're seeing as the scale of the problem before us. And what we've been able to do with the Asian Water Development Outlook is to assign a number in the last decade or so of 2.7 billion people being lifted from extreme water insecurity since 2013. Still 4 billion or so remain to achieve model water security in the region. You've got some good success stories emerging, but I don't know if you were there for some of the previous session. We shared a little bit about this report, but basically, let's talk a little bit about the ADB's Water Operators Partnership for Resilience program. As I said, you've got investment right at the top, and we are lending quite a bit. You've got capacity, and in order to sustain those operations, you need technical assistance. We have a facility called the Water Financing Partnership Facility, funded through a lot of donors, as well as some of our own funding, and that helps us bridge that gap. And finally is to look at impact. So we did do a few twinnings without linking it to financing programs or our projects. The results were a mixed bag, right? So therefore, we said that why don't we link all the twinnings that we are doing with the existing ADB project portfolio? And it doesn't have to be just us doing the twinning. So that's why our conversation, that's why we are here, thanks to Shobana and Osa, we are trying to see how we both can partner together. If we bring the project, someone brings the mentor or the program, that's fine with us as well. So what we've done since 2007 is we've twinned around 90 utilities. We've leveraged around $2.5 billion worth of projects, and we've done this in 30 countries or so. Currently, we have 10 ongoing, and each week as we speak, there's like a wrap-up happening because we're launching another phase of our water operators twinning, and I think we're going to commit to around 25 in the next 3 years. And what we are looking at is we are expanding it. And for all of you Marvel Cinematic Universe fans here, we're calling it the twinning universe, right? So we are expanding to city twinning, river basin organizations. We're also going to be doing some small private sector twinnings, and we've got one success story between Vietnam, TDM Water, and we twinned them with K Water, and that wraps up next week. And we're also looking at sanitation-focused WOPs. all right, something dedicated that we are partnering with Gates Foundation on. Plenty of success stories, and I think we have a little Q&A section where I can show a little bit more of the results. But here are 3 reasons why we think this works, right? One is it becomes, when we link it to a project, it's a shared responsibility. It's not just us who come in as facilitators and we have to take care of all the partners. We feel the project officer is a bit more vested, our management is a bit more vested, as well as the government in the country where we are linking it to a project, whether it's a city government, state, or a national. Number 2, people learn from people. The best part of any of these trainings that we have seen is it's the intangibles, the things that I don't know how to put into a knowledge capture report, the camaraderie that is built, the professional relationships that are built. So that's a great reason to why we want to do that, because you can't borrow money for an intangible. And lastly, building the confidence, not just the capacity, but the confidence of the utility. I mean, it has been quite remarkable. And we're going to we are experimenting with a mentee to mentor converter program. So that within the utility that we have trained, like in Nepal, Kawasati, we are looking to see in the next phase, can we prepare them to be a mentor? Right? So that's also been great, and that kind of confidence you can't borrow funds for. And I think that's where the key reason why we do WOPs linked to our investment project. And as Winston said, Winston, I think we have a common mentor at the World Bank. Don't build the pipes, build the institution that built the pipes. So thank you.
I'll come sit down here, I think, instead of Winston's no longer stay with us. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And I'm just going to start off with the first round of questions to you all for after those inspiring presentations. So my first question is to Bernd from KfW. Bernd, KfW has been a strong advocate for moving utilities forward towards financial sustainability and access to market-based finance. From your perspective, what are the key attributes or performance indicators that you look for in a water utility before considering support through market-based or blended financing arrangements?
Is it working? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Actually, I cannot tell you exactly. So I mean, there are different, let's say, different ways. So if we talk like about the new water catalyst initiative, there were certainly criteria, selection criteria, or there are, but I don't know them. I would need to ask my colleagues who deal with it. But in general, of course, let's say what we do, we have like an institutional assessment of our partners before we provide investments. And I don't think we have like a certain number of KPIs, but we look at the overall situation and maybe like where the development needs, so internal capacity development, institutional development needs. And then we come up with a with a judgment, or like with a result on that. But generally, we're quite flexible. I mean, we do different sorts of financing. So there's like budget financing. We use a lot of mainly funding from the German government budget. And then, of course, we have more flexibility because it's concessional. But sometimes we use also market funding, so blending with budget funding. And then what we usually do, we are able to scale for example, the interest rate and the volume of financing according to the capacity of the partner. So we can adjust basically to the specific situation. So maybe that's what I can say about it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Bernd. Pierre, I'm going to turn to you from AFD's perspective. Most of your work tends to show that strong leadership, during sustainable accountability and long-term performance improvements really boosts the sustainability of water and sanitation infrastructure. From your perspective, how important is the leadership at the local government and utility level in enabling the environment for these successful investments?
I would say very important. The projects we finance are not our projects. They belong to the asset owners. They belong to the utilities. Traditionally, when people come to us, they ask for a CapEx-oriented support. And we talk naturally to the asset companies, when what we really want to do, the change we really want to implement on the field, is it's measured in terms of quality of service. It's measured in terms of sustainability. So really, we want to talk to the utility more than to the asset company. And what we believe is that the operational, the financial, and the social performance is a very, very powerful trust-building tool. Right? Trust building between the utility and the people it serves, trust building between the utility and its line ministry or the regulation authorities, and trust building with us as a financier. So this being said, the leadership of the utility is really the cornerstone, and it's really critical in the sense that it's the utility leader that can distillate the culture and the vision of operational performance, of transparency, and of accountability. So, and this is true, I would say, whatever the context and whatever the external constraints are, whether you are a very developed utility or utility facing much bigger constraints. So the utility leaders, they have the power to make the right decisions that change the situation on the field. They also they are the best place to obtain that autonomy that is required to actually implement change towards performance. And so, yeah, I would say, to respond shortly to your question, very important.
Thanks very much, Pierre. Very well said. Turning now to the EU and Zoe, how do you see the role of the EU-supported platforms for WOPs in bridging the gap between technical learning and concrete investments and concrete investment readiness at the utility level?
Thank you. Is it working? Yes, it is. So I had the chance to explain a bit that during my presentation, that actually the EU program, with this linking and putting it as a priority for the program, we aim at first leveraging the internal resources of the utility by improving its efficiency, so reducing all the leakages and unbilled water, energy inefficiencies, to actually being able to allocate more existing resources to the functioning and operation of the utility. And then, thanks to this improved leveraging of existing internal resources, they can actually increase their trust, as Pierre mentioned, and then reach out to other sources of capital outside the utility. And I can also make a link with what Pierre mentioned in terms of transparency. Another aspect of the water operator partnership is the digitalization. And why are we putting digitalization up front? It's because it can also be a tool to improve the efficiency with all the tools that exist around that. But another aspect is actually the transparency. By allowing data collection, data sharing, it can improve the accountability and transparency of the utility towards its clients and main beneficiaries, but also towards the line government. And these also help building trust in terms of investments.
Wonderful, thanks very much. Ezra, returning to you at the EBRD, your engagement with utilities often includes extensive work on governance, financial management, and, for example, tariff reform. These are all prerequisites for market-based finance. From your experience, what kinds of capacity development or institutional support are the most critical for utilities to become credible borrowers?
There are a number of them. So I'd like to begin with saying that I'm an environmental engineer. And as a part of my job with the EBRD as a multilateral development bank, saying that it's a development bank, I am always driven to seek the most robust technical solutions. And I am still an engineer, like a passionate one. But sometimes when I reach out to the clients and I see engineers like myself with well-built capacity, but that alone is not sufficient. So coming back to the discussions earlier, it's always important to have a sort of institutional capacity as well to make a project successful, and also to make the institutions fix the pipes themselves in the future. So this is our target. How we do it is we have what we call corporate development programs, which comes after signing of a loan, and that are mostly funded by the donors. There are a number of things that we can do, but I can't name them this or that because they're not done based on a specific template TOR, but they are mostly tailored to the needs of the clients we have. So it can be anything where you actually feel like you're lacking the capacity, and we are happy to help you in terms of developing the capacity that is needed there. So this can be, on top of my head, could be sometimes of some sorts of technical cooperation projects, tariff settings, internal controls, governance development, sorts of internal audits, sometimes some things about being inclusive, for example, for women, or the enhancements of the situation of the children, for example. So it can be anything that is technical, social, environmental. It's going to be tailored to the needs of the clients, basically. I hope this answers the question.
Wonderful, thanks. So, yeah, nice to hear that. I'm also an engineer, so I know how you feel, and although I no longer been working as an engineer for a few years, I fully appreciate what your sentiments, what you're saying, so I could understand. Vivek, I'd like to come to you now from the Asian Development Bank's perspective. You shared with us the WOP4, I don't know how you pronounce it, how you pronounce the name. WOP4 program represents a shift in how we think about capacity development, where you're linking peer learning directly to investment outcomes rather than treating it as a standalone technical assistance. Could you explain how this program of ADB approach differs from traditional sort of technical assistance models in terms of design, contracting, and performance measurement?
Sure, thanks for the question. It's no secret to anybody here in the room, right? I mean, we do have traditional technical assistance programs as well. That's, to help them do a little feasibility study, sometimes workshops to kind of training programs. But this WOP for our resilience is different. It's peer-to-peer learning. Right? It's not necessarily when you come in and it's like talking down, there's like a little top to down. So it's people learn from people, and we keep saying that over and over again. And I think the thing that really clicked for us was that we had a ready base of projects, right? And it was a very selfish decision. I mean, this wasn't some grand scheme that we had. We just said that as a capacity of our team in WOP4R is we are very small people, and if you're doing 10 twinnings at any time, every week there is some sort of exchange happening at various stages, right? We call them reciprocal visits, diagnostic visits, information. To just keep on top of the logistics is impossible. So selfishly, we said, let's share this responsibility with the project officer. Let's make sure that the manager of that project officer who's monitoring all this program is also aware that something like this is happening. Then we have a network of country offices, which we call resident missions, to let them know that someone from ADP Portugal, I don't know if you're here in the room, they were in Sri Lanka recently. They have been twinned with Sri Lanka for a project there. The country director knew that, someone is visiting their country and therefore had to be meeting, because at the end of the day, I mean, we're all busy running around doing different projects, etc. So the more people you bring on board to help ensure your success, and what we are seeing now is it's working, right? There are more and more people getting aware, not just within ADB of the program. And we also did something a little bit clever. We called it a graduation ceremony. It's ceremonial, but it forces people to come and give opening remarks. And any one of you who's worked in MDBs or IFIs know how people love opening remarks, closing remarks. So the country director gives opening remarks, the project manager gives opening remarks, and they all have to then force and read the results of what happened. And then we get the mentor and the mentee to share the result of the 2-year exchange that we have supported. Plus, it gives them a reason to celebrate. We don't celebrate enough these kind of successes. So it's just, that's the reason why we've done it. And it wasn't some grand scheme, purely selfish. We just couldn't manage the workload.
Perfect answer. Thanks very, very much. Over to you, Shabana, for the next round of questions.
So, audience, are you ready for more? Because we still have time left. We're not hurrying the questions. So, we want to dig more into development banks and their experiences. So, I'd like to start with Ben about the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative. I know that KFW is a part of it, and there was a big launch today, and you're doing great work on looking at transitioning from grant dependence to market-based financing. This is done critically through improving operational and financial performance. So what I'd like to know is, can you share how the initiative identifies and supports partner utilities? Particularly, what criteria are you using to determine readiness for catalytic support?
Okay, as I said, I don't know all the details about the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative. Maybe to explain a little bit why we chose this approach, because so what we traditionally do, where we're coming from, and what we still do is like project-based finance. Project-based finance means you basically you enter a relationship, and as soon as you sign the contract, you're bound to it in a way. And if you experience on the way during implementation challenges, then you have to deal with them, but you're not able to get out. So, and sometimes what we experience, that there are changes in the performance of the partners, or the legal circumstances change, and then you suddenly find yourself in a situation where you say, okay, does it still make sense or not? So that's one of the reasons for the Urban Water Catalyst Initiative, because we enter a relationship with a partner utility, and we don't finance the project, a specific project, specific infrastructure, but we have a long-term relationship with the partners, meaning we can also adjust to changes and see, okay, what is actually what the partner needs from us in terms of financing, in terms of capacity development, and that makes it much more flexible. And I think it's a very good approach. Of course, we are still in the beginning, but I'm quite hopeful that this will be very successful. So, of course, let's say in the first round, and now we're dealing with a number of utilities which are partners in the Water Catalyst Initiative, and basically, I think there was like an assessment of various utilities based also on previous experiences from KfW, from GIZ, from the Dutch Development Corporation, and then there was certainly some sort of assessment of the, let's say, financial situation of the utility, of the capacity, of the performance level, and on that basis, the initial selection was happening. Thanks.
I think it's a great closing the loop initiative, and we're really looking forward to seeing some results from the from the initiative itself. So I'll move from Germany to France. And Pierre, I wanted to ask you about AFD's approach. I mean, you're definitely advocating for capacity development, and you've tried peer learning and WOPs, and to make it, and you've tried to scale it up within the investment programs. Yet we all know that there are traditional procurement rules, and technical assistance comes with a lot of complicated contracting models, and sometimes it's difficult to mobilize peer learning, for example, or when you're especially engaging with mentor utilities, let's say in France. So from your perspective, I'd like to know, how are you approaching this challenge, and are there any innovative procurement or contracting mechanisms that you're using? And can this be more accessible within finance projects? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know how much time I have. I could take half an hour, I think. Well, first I want to maybe state again the fact that even if we're a finance institution, operational performance is really a key for us. And it's a key not only because it ensures bankability or creditworthiness, but it's a key because it leads to sustainable and lasting impact on the field. So as you were saying, it's really key to us that when we enter a project, we make sure that the project not only responds to the investment needs, but also has a sustainable impact on the capacity of the operator to deliver the service in the long run. So what we do to try and do that more efficiently, of course, we finance contracts, and we have tried every shape or form of contract between technical assistance, performance-based contracts, management contracts, PPP, etc., etc. I think I can quite comfortably say that there is no one good recipe that works. I think we've all tried and experienced and shared our experience in this regard. So we keep trying, and how we keep trying. The first thing we do, and we are doing, is we're strengthening our SDG internal framework to evaluate more systematically how the projects we finance, they have a positive impact on governance, on the performance of public management. This is to say how it supports sustainably the capacity of the operator to deliver the public service to the population beyond the relationship they will have with us as a financier. So what it means is that practically much earlier in the relationship, we will talk about operational performance. We will try and integrate that into the logical framework of the project, into the dialogue and the discussion, try and identify and make the needs emerge much earlier in the process. The second thing we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage brownfield projects. We of course, they're much harder to implement, but we would at all costs like to avoid a situation where we work on a greenfield project, we also bring or patch technical assistance or water operator partnership working with a very light approach to support the utility. And that financing that's required to do the, I would say, operational investments required to attain the performance, that financing is not there. So as much as we can, we'll try to integrate budget lines in our projects to finance those brownfield projects. A third thing we're trying to do is to diversify our financing tools. Historically, we are financing project-based loans, basically, with earmarked financing tools. In the recent couple of years, around 15% of the 1 billion euros of project we approve every year, they have been on non-sovereign loans. And most of these non-sovereign loans projects, they are not affected. And so the dialogue we have with the utilities we finance shifts from the investment program much more towards the financial performance and the operational performance. And we have an ambition of expanding these kind of tools as much as we can, which means take the journey with our counterparts to that point where they would be in a position to claim that kind of financing. And the last point I think I would like to emphasize is we try to think partnership. We are a small bilateral donor, but there are so many other players around the table. All of us, we have the same concerns in mind about sustainability, about operational performance. We have the humility to say that we are definitely not the best place to do everything, and there is a lot of power in leveraging the expertise and the different tools of all the potential partners. So we will look at the EU to try and develop leverage towards technical assistance. We will try and see what WOPs are in place or whether we can implement one in part of our projects. We will try to leverage the expertise of the private sector to keep exploring forms of contract that would be beneficial to both the beneficiary and the private partners. And this is not always easy, and there's a lot of work, but there are a lot of ideas I think we have to keep exploring together.
I think to summarize what you're saying is too many cooks will not spoil the broth when it comes to financing. So every...
Yes, but we have to talk about the recipe still.
Yeah. So hiring cooks. So next I'll move on to Zoe. But Zoe is kind of an arranged marriage dealer. So she's trying to link you people to utilities and capacity development. So I'll just hand over the mic to Zoe to ask a question to all of you.
Yes, thank you. So in the context of this EU partnership, we have been engaging with a few European development finance institutions such as AFD, KfW, EIB, to discuss together how we can better embed this WOP approach within the investment. And as Pierre was mentioning, there is no one recipe. We're still looking around. I could hear the same discussion at KfW, how to manage to do it in a way that is not too heavy for your institution and still delivers impactfully. So my question is a bit, yes, how can we do it? How can we link the WOP with the investment made by the investment finance institution, and also potentially learn from the Asian development experience, considering that they have been doing that extensively?
Okay, I'll start. I think, well, the lessons we're learning from the call for participation in the second generation of the EU partnership is that I think the message has gone through that linking operational performance and investment is key. And so we have seen already, we have been contacted much more directly by a lot of operators, either mentor or mentee, who are trying to build that consistency and coherence between the water operator partnership and the investment program. One thing I think what we would love to have is a WOP that can, is a EU WOP that can, on a continuous basis, as the projects emerge, support new partnerships. Because obviously you have tools and regulations and financing envelopes that are governing this, but as a financial institution, the projects, they come to us on a continuous basis, and we award them on a continuous basis. So having a tool that would allow to basically tap in and implement water operator partnerships on a continuous basis linked with an investment project would be very powerful.
This one. Thanks. So, yes, I don't know much about the details of the EU WOP program, but let's say our experiences, of course, let's say investment projects, sustainability of the investment means that the long-term operation and maintenance must be assured of the infrastructure, and that's often a challenge. So, meaning what is definitely important is that the partner has the capacity to do it, like institutionally and financially, to do long-term operation and maintenance. Within our structure, we can only finance, let's say, directly linked to the project, investment project, capacity building, and that's not long enough. So we cannot, we have to stick to the implementation period of the investment. But I think the utility needs some time before, let's say, to build up already capacity, and also some time afterwards to familiarize with the infrastructure, then to learn to work with it in a way. And that's something water operator partnerships can do, and that's what we like about it, and that's why we are also happy that WOP program exists and other programs in that respect. Thanks.
Maybe I can add on top of what Pierre said. So basically, we understand that capacity building is very important to manage the assets, and we can't manage them with underdeveloped capacity. But there are certain things that can't be handled just through capacity building. Sometimes you have to invest, and these WOPs may reveal some needs for some sorts of investments, and that's when you should be reaching out to the IFIs, in my opinion, because it's our job to find the best solution, if not already found by or through these WOPs, and also finance it properly, transparently, and in line with international best practice. We can ensure that. So I really find that the WOPs very helpful for finding the issues and resolving them if that is capacity related. And I think all our targets are the same. We're just not calling it names. It's WOPs for you, something else for KfW, it's corporate development program for us, but the target, the aim is the same, so we shouldn't be forgetting that, in my opinion. Thank you.
Great. Esra, I'll just hold on to that mic, because since we're talking about recipes, so I just wanted to ask if EBRD has any secret recipe where you have integrated structured learning and benchmarking components to strengthen long-term creditworthiness.
Okay. Yes, we found that the most effective way to strengthen the long-term creditworthiness is to combine financing with structured learning. And in many of our projects, we include performance-based components. For example, benchmarking against combined financial and operational indicators, such as non-revenue water reduction, smart metering, collection amount, or energy efficiency, for example. So these become measurable targets linked to the corporate development support we have, so the utilities can clearly understand where they stand. We also encourage benchmarking, and we benchmark across countries and our regions, just to make sure our clients can understand what a good performance means for them, because it's important to locate where you are against others, other similar clients of us. And in that sense, we connect them in case we find it beneficiary for each parties, all the parties included. So it's not one-off exercise, it's the structured learning. It's integrated throughout the project cycle. We start at the feasibility stage, and we continue, and we don't leave it when the project is implemented, but we continue doing that during monitoring of the investment as well. So it's a continued progress, but yes, we basically combine different indicators to be able to, I mean, it depends on the nature of the project, which indicators we will be picking, but there are certain number of those that we can pick from, yeah.
Thanks. I think your answer would be most useful to the audience. So I'm going to end the panel with you, Vivek. So we have, I just want to talk a bit about private sector partners and you, ADB, you have a private sector operations department and you're mobilizing blended financing and PPPs in water through this department. Now, I just want to know how peer learning and operator partnerships can help prepare utilities to engage more confidently and equitably, most importantly, with private investors and ensure that performance improvements also attract private capital in a very sustainable way.
Shobna, you can't ask that question 5 minutes between us and a glass of beer, I'm guessing at the happy hour. And I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize. You know, and I've been hearing some of our other panelists as well, and frankly, there's no silver bullet to any of this, as you know. We have a private sector operators department, and we're using, you know, sometimes I feel that when we are working in these kind of organizations that are, let's be honest, a little heavy on bureaucracy, etc., we forget that we are all working as human beings as well, right? So how do we get your team members to be motivated? How do you spread the positive buzz about something that you're working? It's like watching a Netflix show and telling your neighbor, saying, hey, I just watched a great show, you should watch it too. Right? So what happened is when we are doing some of these twinnings, and we kind of revamped it in the last year or so with a few more extra steps to get it some visibility within ADB. And and the project officers who are a bit bogged down with the difficult part of negotiating with the government, board approvals of the loan document, etc., they need help as well. So one of the first things we kind of go and offer to them is, hey, we'll take care of a lot of the heavy lifting. You just help us bridge that gap where, you know, we don't want to build a relationship with the utility, but it should be you because it's your project. And then when you frame it like that, it kind of worked for them to say, hey, I'm happy to take any support that you guys are going to give us. So the positive buzz spread to the private sector department as well. And yes, we also reached out to them to offer them the suite of support that we have. And someone said, look, we actually have this utility. We are trying to strengthen their capacity. And this is TDM in Vietnam. And they needed some help with bulk water metering. We had someone we knew in Korea, K-Water. And we thought, let's bring them together. What we did there is we are adopting a principle-based approach to all twinnings. No two twinnings are the same. My colleague Fatima, who's here, who's just coming from another twinning in Lisbon between Sri Lanka and we customized the program there as well. So even for private sector, when we did it for the first time between these two entities, we changed a lot of the steps that we have, which are traditional for the sovereign side of our projects to non-sovereign. And now the director is saying, this has kind of worked well for us, and you've helped fill a gap that we couldn't do in our traditional, you know, the non-sovereign side of the loan that we have. Can you do a few more? And we just announced 1 or 2 more that are going to, that last week, and we're going to stagger them and announce a few more in the next 6 months or so. And like I said, I mean, it's the aspect of soft support that you provide to any project more than here are the firm 3 deliverables that you need to deliver on. And many times we've even switched deliverables. You know, we said this one, yes, the mentee thought this is what they needed at the beginning, especially like say in the private sector. Then we quickly changed it and said, okay, don't do step number 2, let's go straight to step number 4. And all of this is helping to kind of answer that, you know, that loaded question you had, more not on the technical side, but the side of how do you run a program such as this, which is completely there's no hard and fast instructions that you can follow. There's no playbook. Yet we've developed a toolkit to help people learn what we are doing, what are the steps so you can customize it. And we're happy to talk to any of you, not only here on the panel, but to any of you in the audience of what's working for us. And I'll also tell you a few of the things that haven't worked for us, but for that you have to get me a glass of beer or something. Yeah, all right.
Later, whoever wants to join, Vivek on a beer. So thank you all panelists, but there's a twist to this. It's not ending yet. We have 3 discussants, or I'd like to call them detectives, who've been sitting in the audience observing what you're saying. And I'd like to introduce, maybe you could wave, Maria Pascual from WOPA. And then we have Dr. Rose Kagwa, who's the Senior Director, Business and Scientific Services from NWSC, Uganda. And we have Dwika Riantara, who's the Managing Director of Perumda Air Minum Tirtamayang in Jambi City in Indonesia. And they've been listening to you quietly, and they have some feedback because this is the dialogue, and we want to give the voice to utilities as well. So over to you.
Vivek, I'm Dwika. So ADB designs and organizes the WOPs on its own, right? You provide the funding and you facilitate the WOPs. My question, why not empowering and supporting the existing WOPs platform instead of by doing it by ADB itself?
That's why we are here, actually. We've been talking to Osa and Shobana and to see how can we tap into your existing platforms and not just have to do our own. And we are very open to that. We've been doing this since 2007 or so. And let me share a small anecdote. When we announced this phase of request for mentees or projects, I think within 2 weeks, we got 18 requests. So there's more than we can handle, right? Because we're a small team within ADB, and WOP is not the only thing we are doing. We're actually working on a lot of other projects alongside. So any opportunity to tap into any existing platform, and that's what we are trying to work out with together with our MOU with UN Habitat, where WOPs is going to be quite prominent in what the 2 large institutions agree to do.
Okay, thanks so much for the very interesting presentations and the different points of view. I would like just to recall a bit of a historical perspective. I remember, I think almost 20 years ago, knocking on the doors of banks to see how WOPs could be supported as a component of the investment program. It was very complex. There have been some initiatives from the EIB and the realization that, of course, the risk minimization procedures that you need to build in one of these investment programs are really incompatible with the nature of trust and flexibility that the WOP need to really function properly. Now we see GWOPA has conducted a lot of research on this particular topic, of course, because at the end of the day, we're all looking into impact. No? How can we make that the 30 utilities that the Catalyst initiative is aiming to support in 2030 is not only 30, no? It's many more through capacity development and investment. So now we see that, okay, we have the things have changed. The interest of financiers has increased in this WOP movement and what the WOP can do. It's not about only peer learning towards individual capacity, but it actually transforms into organizational capacity, systems, structures, tools, whatever is needed in order to get that performance. And that's a messy universe, right? All that happens within the organization. But it is working, as we've heard. It's working. We come from different sessions talking about WOPs, what has happened, results, and it's amazing what we are achieving with the WOP movement now. Utilities are searching for investments, components. Financiers are looking for continuity of peer support during the whole investment cycle, and that seems to be one of the stronger assets that the WOP can provide, right? A peer supporting another one before, during, and after. We see also that we breach the political, there is a kind of a political cover when a peer works with a peer, different than when a consultant comes 3 months, totally worth it, maybe for a sprint, for a specific study, for a feasibility, but it doesn't give the continuity and it doesn't give that kind of resilient project, because in the WOPs we've seen, you start with the funding, and then you look for another funding, and then you look for another one, because there is like a peer-to-peer commitment as well. So we are seeing that water utilities want funding for investments. Investors or financiers are looking for this kind of peer-to-peer support and continuity, but we are all working under the same rules as we used to in the past, except for some examples that we are seeing throughout the day, no? And how the EU WOP program is prioritizing the financial linkage, or the water utility, water catalyst initiative. I always miss one of the, no? It's trying to bridge the grants coming for the capacity development, the investment, and how to bridge the gap. And everyone seems to be interested in this move, but I think we are missing a bit of coordination, and how to coordinate different actors, and the sequencing within capacity and investments. So I think the field is ready, the actors are ready, and I think now it's also a matter of giving visibility to all these initiatives, right, that are happening, like we had today with the EU WOP program. And probably GWOPA is the great platform to try to create this kind of, I don't know if it's brokering or the pipeline of projects that Pierre was mentioning, no? A long-standing WOP or continuous WOP projects that can be linked with the investment pipeline, and how to coordinate that, right? So I would just like to highlight that it's working, the interest is there. Now we need to find the mechanisms to really make it work and reach the impact. So thanks so much.
Yeah, I'll hand over to Rose.
Thank you very much. It's been a long day, but very interesting. I'll move this way so that the panel can see me. When we started WOPs, we talked about courtship, mentors, mentees, and we expected these marriages to last. But of course, in a WOP, it never lasts forever because, yeah, it ends. But just listening to you, one of the couple of things that I wanted to ask, and maybe throw some pebbles, as some people say. Marie talked about actors. And one of the key actors in this whole story of water and sanitation are the governments. But when we come to such congresses, we hardly see any real government people. So this morning we were happy to have some ministers. But again, we know, especially from Africa, that ministers are really, in most cases, political. So when there's a shift in politics, you will get another minister. What I'm asking is what efforts are being made to support institutionalization of WOPs at country levels to ensure that WOPs are part of the water policies that we have. Because right now, I don't think that is really trickling down. And again, as financiers, what role can you play in that? The second one is that we have global partners, development partners, global, the big guys in the room. But many of the national contributors to financing are the local commercial banks. And again, what can we do to ensure that there's partnership between you, the development partners, and the local commercial banks? Because when we get to issues of investment, we'll find that for many of us, and I'll speak for Africa, our governments, we are really up to our, not even beyond our necks in debt. And when you go to talk about market financing, and it's coming from abroad, they'll always ask, what are the costs for that? How will we handle that? So we find that in some cases, good examples of local financing, market financing are available, and the utilities could reach out to that. So that is one thing that would also be able to look at, and maybe you can talk more about that. And then linking investment to operational performance, I'm glad that we are having this conversation now. For the utilities, we need to grow up, because nobody wants to come and support you when you really have lousy KPIs. And a lot of times, we could actually improve, but it's just because the mentality is more on consumption than development. And they are I like giving examples. When you come to Europe, we will walk, we will use the train, we will use the bus. You'll go to some utilities in Africa and you'll find 100 cars parked, utility cars parked in the compound, because everybody must have a car and everyone must have a driver, and all that is consumption. And yet you could leverage that money and transform it into development. But as we link investment and operational performance, again, just to end, yesterday when we had the steering committee, someone asked me, do we have African Development Bank investing in Uganda? And I said yes, but they were not at the WOPs table. Yeah, we have Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank wasn't there. And then someone else asked me, do you have AFD projects? And I said, yes, we have so many AFD projects. But do those projects, investments, link with the capacity development activities in the utilities? For utilities, I think we need to look at how we set up training and capacity building. In many cases, there is no provision for support to WOPs in terms of both OPEX and CAPEX. Because in order for us to get it right, we can't expect that we will continue to have, and there are 3 things I've written here. There's self-help, so looking at our KPIs, doing our part. There are external help that comes in, setting the policies right. And then there's divine help. Right now, we are thinking that WOPs are the Father Christmas for all of us. But I think there's a lot more that we can do. Thank you.
I think I'm going to have to get a microphone, but I think in the interest of time, there's been a very rich discussion today, and I'm not going to try and summarize everything, but I'm going to have a go in 1 or 2 minutes just to come out with some of the clear points that I've picked up this afternoon. Across all of the discussions, from the panelists, from the discussants, and everything else. The first thing, of course, is it sounds like it's obvious, but the issue of partnerships and understanding how the traditional type of WOP partnership has evolved over years. We've seen partnerships evolve. There's also opportunity to expand new partnerships and to look at these in the development of WOPs and future WOPs as we go forward. The second issue, and this again has come up a couple of times in the discussions, the financing gap is actually a performance gap. We heard this at the beginning through the presentations. We also heard it from Rose as a practitioner early on. So we've got to start to talk about performance much earlier on in the establishment of these WOPs. The fact that the peer learning must be properly aligned with the investments over the scale and life of the project. That was a very important point that came out. And on the issue of peer-to-peer learning, I very much like the comment, I can't remember who it was, who mentioned that it must have elements of capacity and confidence. I think it was you, Vivek, who said that. And I think this is a very important thing because I'm an engineer like Ezra, and I know engineers are quite a conservative profession, and sometimes if you get a professional engineer from one part of the world speaking to another, there's a worry that your job's on the line if you do something that's wrong. And this is an inbuilt protection that engineers have. So this idea of understanding and developing that confidence between peers, between engineers or between institutions, between finances across the WOPs is I think, very, very important. Another issue that came up was that, yes, traditionally WOPs have focused on hard infrastructure KPIs, but we also need to look much more closely at the social side of performance and links, for example, to community systems. We're seeing delegated management models now in many places, particularly in large urban areas, and how we can bring and draw those elements into WOPs. 2 more comments to go. Another one may be slightly obvious, but one size doesn't fit all. Everywhere's different, and we do have to be very careful when we're adapting practices across countries and across continents. And my final comment is in relation to the long-term sustainability of WOPs and their institutionalization in government structures. We heard this early on, and again, it was mentioned just now by Rose. How can we really ensure that WOPs stay the life of investment projects, and they're there all the way through, and there's a certain part, if you like, of national government where WOPs can plug into so that they're there and they're long-term and they're maintained, and the benefits are continued to be reaped over the life of investment projects. Anyway, I'll stop there. There was probably a lot more that I missed, but on that note, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. On behalf of my co-presenter, Shibana, I'd like to thank all of you for staying here for the duration, and we look forward to seeing you later and that you enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.